The African-American vote can make or break a Democratic presidential campaign in South Carolina. In 2008, black voters made up more than 50% of the voters in the South Carolina Democratic primary. While Clinton is expected to carry that vote in the Palmetto State, Bernie Sanders is working to close the gap. But he's also running into some feedback. Last night, at a forum in Minnesota, hosted by a panel of African-American moderators, Sanders encountered an inquisitive and borderline, I guess, raucous crowd, very vocal. One woman even challenging Sanders to say the word black.
We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, especially within the African-American community. So when I've said black 50 times. That's the 51st. This is an action.
All right, let's talk more about this with our panel. Donna Brazil is a CNN political commentator and a Democratic strategist. Dr. Jason Johnson is the political editor for TheRoot.com. All right, good to see both of you.
Good to see you, Fred. All
right, so Donna, let me begin with you. What do you suppose is at the root of that tension that we just saw?
You know, African-American voters, black voters, like most Americans, would like to see candidates address their issues, their concerns, and be cognizant of some of the, what I call, cultural shifts that's taking place, the dynamics of inner city politics, urban politics, you know. So they're looking for the nuances between the candidates, and they want to hear what I call the specifics of their policies, their solutions, not just that they marched with Dr. King or they may have gone to jail during that period, but what have you done for us lately? So I think this is a very vibrant, energetic conversation that we're going to see, not just in South Carolina, because right after the South Carolina primary, 2 days later on Super Tuesday, you have Georgia and Alabama and Arkansas and Tennessee, and then later on that in Virginia, and later on my home state of Louisiana, where you have a lot of black delegates at stake. So I think these candidates need to really tune their message to not just inspire and uplift, but to really come up with some solutions.
And then, Jason, how do you see this spilling over into the primaries and caucuses in your view?
Well, I think it's going to spill over because there's a lot of skepticism out there. I mean, look, it seems like Bernie Sanders like...
And skepticism of whom and of what?
I think of both candidates. You know, for African Americans, it's like Bernie discovered black voters 18 months ago, right? Now he's coming up with these new policies.
He has his, his history as a member of, CORE and at the University of Chicago, civil rights movement. He was arrested once. He helped integrate an apartment complex there. But you're saying because people don't have, I guess, fluid knowledge of that, they're just being introduced to that idea, that part of this man, therein lies the skepticism.
Well, it's not just that. It's like most of these things are 50 and 60 years ago, and I don't care. I don't care.
So
a lot of
back
voters
to what Donna
don't care.
just said. What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? Where have you shown policies that actually mattered? Where have you hired people? Where have you brought people in on your staff? Everyone already knows what the Clintons have and have not done for the African-American community. So I think this is actually great. I think the first time in history we've seen Democratic candidates actually compete for the African-American vote with policies and symbolism rather than just performance.
And it's not necessarily, this doesn't set this groundwork that it's a shoe-in for Hillary Clinton either, because there are a lot of people in the black community who are still upset with crime bills during the Clinton administration, Donna. And while Hillary and Bill Clinton have apologized for, that, there are still people who say, I'm not necessarily sure if I want to give Hillary Clinton a chance because especially the mandatory minimums, that was so egregious, so big, that some people find that unforgivable.
And Fred, the truth is, I was a Capitol Hill staffer during that time, and a large majority of the Congressional Black Caucus, because members of the Black Caucus, like members of the entire Congress, they were under pressure from the black community, from black ministers and others who wanted a response to the crime epidemic. And did it go too far? Bill Clinton has apologized. He said last year at the NAACP, yes, it went too far. Hillary Clinton has been a United States Senator and Secretary of State, and I would hope that we would also also argue about her history in that realm, not only as First Lady, but also her history.
Okay.
And let me just say this, and when you talk about lately, I start my history sometime back in the 1960s, but also, you know, I like to talk about local politics and what's going on right now. We have a crisis in Flint. That water crisis is not just Flint. That's a phenomenon taking place all over America. We got the Ferguson effect. What are you doing about that? We have joblessness, chronic joblessness, homelessness. We need to have all of these issues addressed and not just focus on one particular issue, but look at the entire systemic problems facing the African-American, poor, black communities all over the country.
You know, and it's interesting because just last night, Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed had this to say really about why that he thought it was disingenuous, that perhaps Bernie Sanders did not mention Obama's record enough. He actually said he was dismissing Obama's record. This is what he had to say on our air.
Well, you know, one of the things that's been very troubling to me and people in the city of Atlanta and folks I talk to in Columbia, South Carolina, is how dismissive Senator Sanders' message is of the work that President Barack Obama has done. He talks about college affordability, but he never referenced how much President Obama and Democrats put on the line to remove $50 billion from the cost of college. He talks about universal health care, but he doesn't give enough credit to Barack Obama, supported by Secretary Clinton, providing health care at the highest levels that we have in the history of our country to more than 90% of the people, and adding 18 million newly insured. So when you hear his rhetoric, Chris, you wonder what in the world has President Obama and the Democrats been doing and sacrificing so much for.
So, Jason, you first. How does Bernie Sanders respond to that?
Well, you know, the big issue that Sanders has is that he has no response. He's been a senator since 2007. He's been in Congress for almost 30 years and has almost no relationship with the Congressional Black Caucus and many black leaders throughout the country. So they're not going to support him because they haven't seen him put in the work.
Donna?
I can tell you this much. Black voters not only respect the work that President Obama has done in all of his achievements, but they're going to support someone who will not just protect that legacy, but expand upon it. And that is something that I believe both candidates should understand.
So you see that as a big bonus that Hillary Clinton, especially as of recent, makes a lot of references to Obama's work and how she wants the opportunity to build on it.
You know, 2008 was a historic campaign. It was a hard-fought race. At the end of the day, she lost, and she threw not just her support behind Barack Obama, but she campaigned, she raised money for him, and she served in his administration. If that doesn't tell you a lot about Hillary Clinton, I don't know what will.
Okay, let's hold that thought. Donna Brazil, Jason Johnson, coming up, we're going to talk more about Hillary Clinton and that narrow victory in Iowa, followed by a huge loss in New Hampshire. She is expected to win, or should she expect to win in South Carolina?